Beloveds, life has brought us to this now moment. Although our journeys are very different, right now, here is where we are. Portia Nelson wrote a wonderful poem many, many years ago, and that is the basis for my talk today, The Edge of the Known. And in this wonderful book that she wrote, in the prologue, she says, "My life has been a series of wonderful experiences. It is a pity I wasn't there for most of them." We don't want that to happen, right? We do not want to have this wonderful life, this life that is good, and miss it. No, no. And so, I'm going to invite us all here in the sanctuary, online, in your living room, or if you're traveling, we have folks from our community traveling in Greece and Germany and Sweden. People from California are joining us today, all through the Southwest, and some people from right down the street in their pajamas. We can see you. And so wherever we find ourselves, let's take a moment and look around and appreciate who and what you see, what you notice. We'll just take a moment. And then come back to this wonderful experience, this now moment, which all its texture, its sound, feel it. And if it's comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and silently say within yourself, "I am available. I am available. Perhaps I am available for this newness." And from this place now, let's listen to this straightforward poem, the Autobiography in 5 short chapters. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in this same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time for me to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It is a habit, but my eyes are open. I know it is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down a different street. I don't know about you, but I love to lean into a structure. And so this poem is really helping. It's really supporting me. It has supported me for decades now. And I would like for us to make this personal. Here's what I'm offering. I will share some of my healing journey. If you promise, you will look at yours a little differently. Can we agree on that? Okay, thank you. Like I said, I've known this poem for decades. Sometimes I thought about it when I found myself walking down a different street. I walked down a whole different country, right? I changed not only streets, cities, I changed countries to be here. And sometimes I thought about this poem when I was at the very bottom of that hole. When I was shouting, I cannot believe I am in the same place. And here's what I want us to all keep in mind throughout this talk today. This poem is the hardest to read when we are experiencing life is happening to us. When we feel like that piece of wood bobbling on top of a random ocean with waves coming from different sides, when life comes at us and we have not experienced our own agency. Does that make sense? Have we all been there? I don't even have to look for the nods, because we have, all of us. That is how this wonderful experience called life is set up here. Those are the times when we are very busy with blaming others. The government, the ex-wife or ex-husband, the family, where I was born, the circumstances of my birth, if I'm blonde or not blonde, right? Absolutely. The moments when I know without a shadow of a doubt that whatever is happening in my life is because of someone else, and usually the finger comes out with that for emphasis. If you're in the sanctuary, you noticed a couple holes have been placed here. And wouldn't you know, I already had somebody say, I almost fell in there. Where is our lawyer? Where is the lawyer? Right? Because that is what often happens. We want to know who put the hole there, whose fault is it, why has it not been fixed? There weren't any signs. And you can feel that energy, right? That is the chapter 1 energy. And depending on how much we stick to our story, as Reverend Michelle Madrano would often say, the more we stick to our story, the more our story sticks to us. And that's all that we can see when we are in chapter 1. It is our version of the story. And frankly, if there is an area in your life today where you experience, you have the experience of being in chapter 1 or 2, where you are experiencing that you are in the hole, this is a very, very hard talk to open up to, because our circumstances are so mesmerizing, are they not? They're just so engaging and mesmerizing. We have evidence. We can point to the evidence. There is a hole. Somebody put it there. You know, I can find agreement, right? I can find agreement with others. And yet, what it really takes for us to get out of the hole is grace, compassion, and kindness. So let's take a breath. Unfortunately, when we find ourselves in this hole, we are so busy blaming others. And rather than seeing this hole as an invitation. Now, all of you are here, you have found the New Vision Center online, you are part of this community. You know that what we talk about here all the time is self-empowerment. We help people see how we can look out at the life that we are experiencing and understand through these tools that we offer that whatever is happening out there has something to do with what is happening within me. And I think that is why I love this poem so much, because it helps us understand it. It helps us come to the edge of the known and then say, I am going to have a different experience. And it takes courage and bravery to do that, does it not? So take a breath, maybe put your hand on your heart, and feel the courage and just our bravery to be here and to have a different look at it. When we do that, when we can see the whole as an invitation of the divine to experience something different, perhaps we can hear spirits whisper, beloved, there's so much more to you than you have lived yet. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 really makes the ineffectiveness of blaming others so clear. Because in chapter 2, Portia says, I walk down the same street, I see there's a hole, I pretend not to see it, and I'm in it again. So chapter 2 introduces shame. Shame being the opposite of blame, right? When we are blaming, we're doing it outwards. When we're shaming, we're pointing it towards ourselves. And it is one of the hardest emotions to come out of. And the louder we shout, the more attached or the more we experience this shame, the longer we're stuck. So what to do? How are we going to get out? The solution is different for each and every person. As different as many people are here in the sanctuary, probably 100 here in the sanctuary, the same amount online. Each and everyone's path out of this is different. And there are some tools that we often point to. Meditation. Finding a way to bring ourselves into the place where we feel one in the divine washes away shame and blame. Have you experienced that? Yeah. When we're in that place where we feel one, when we really understand our unity with one another and with the divine, there is no room for blame or shame. The invitation is really find the meditation that works for you. Find the spiritual practice that you're waking up to in the morning and say, I cannot wait to get into my prayer chair or to do Tai Chi or to read an inspiration. I cannot wait to meet this day from a new place. That is how we prepare ourselves. Some other ways are forgiveness. Forgiveness of ourselves and others. There are so many different ways to practice how to be able to forgive. Find the one that works for you. Because remember, forgiveness is not something we do for another. Forgiveness is what we do for our own heart. That is what lifts us out of the hole. I want to share with you a piece of my healing journey. When I was born, there were a lot of tears. And they were not tears of joy, they were really a lot of tears of disappointment. Because you see, I was not born what my parents expected me to be, a boy. I was a girl. And at that time, my young parents already had a girl, my sister Angelica, who's watching. And so I arrived, and there was great disappointment. Now, in the 1960s in Germany, the common knowledge that we have now that the father is actually responsible for the sex of the child hadn't made it into mainstream knowledge. So my mother, my poor mom, felt like she somehow was at fault. And this was not a family secret. No. Every birthday that I had, every gathering, my father would tell the story how very disappointed. I bet you, if we would do a survey, if we would take a survey of the room of the online community, we would find so many stories of individuals who felt like early in their life they weren't what their parents were hoping for or expected or imagined. For me, this early imprint became a pattern. Again and again, I co-created situations where I felt the same pain that somehow who I was not what was wanted or needed. And you can tell it's still tender. It's still tender. It wasn't until I finally turned towards the shame, the mistakes, and the messes that I co-created that I was able to heal. I realized that while I could not change what my parents experienced in the 1960s, I could change the belief that I had about myself. And that is when I became available for chapter 3 of our story. I understood that it was my fault. It was my fault in the sense that I used the creative power, the life force that I have to perpetuate that pattern. Do you see it? That's a different fault than shame. It is something that awakens us, that reminds us that we are empowered to change our life, that we can take this beautiful essence of the divine and live it out differently. It made it so clear for me that I have agency, that I am the creator, the co-creator of my own life. And that is what lifted me out of the hole. I think we have a slide. Oh, I forgot the first slide, didn't I? Sorry about that. This was the slide from last chapter. Let's read it now. Most loneliness is pain, peering into mirrors of self-pity with the hope of seeing someone else to blame it on. That is what Portia Nelson says when we are so stuck in wanting to blame someone else because we cannot bear to look at ourselves. And then when we go through this transformation, when we are willing to really look at this is mine, it lifts us up. And that brings us to the next slide, which I love. Since I've finally taken responsibility for my life, I can't tell you how often I wanted to give it back. But nobody wants it. Isn't that lucky? This book is just full of beautiful, beautiful reminders. So let's take a breath here. Let's pause. Perhaps a moment of integration, a minute of personal reflection. Making space for a different path is brave. It delivers us to the very edge of what we have known. So let's not rush it. Let's not give up. Let us take the time. Let us take time to do it right. Each time we fall into the hole, the more we can let go of shaming, of blaming, of our story, the more we can let go of what we keep telling ourselves, the more awareness we can bring to the experience. It helps us to learn to fall in less often, and then we learn how to walk around it. This week, as I was preparing for this talk, I've been thinking about the fact that this is not only the transformational experience of each beloved, it is also the transformational experience of the living, breathing entity we call New Vision Center. Because it is made up of all of our beloveds, right? We all make up this idea in the mind and heart of the divine that we call New Vision Center. And so I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about where is New Vision Center in chapter 5? We're walking down a different street. And for me, the example that comes up is our relationship with abundance. The understanding that we are a place where money and financial resources and service flows in and then flows back out into the world. There was a time when I served on the Board of Trustees, it was still called the Board of Trustees back then, that we would have regularly conversations. Are we going to be able to make our 2% tithe this month? We would talk about it. And there were months where we weren't. There were months where we were so convinced that we did not have the funds to give 2% of all the tithes and offerings that came to the center, that we could offer it back out. And then Reverend Dr. Penny Masick became our senior minister in 2016. And I will never forget this. When we had the conversation with the board, she said, I will come if you make the promise to become a tithing center. That is my non-negotiable. Which meant 10% of all the funds that are freely given as tithes and offerings are going back out into the world. 8% to home office, 2% to our local nonprofit partners. And you know what? We knew she would be amazing for the evolution of this center, and we said, yes, yes, we will do that. Did we have any idea how to do that? How to make that leap? No, but she did. She had such faith and trust that if you step in and you make that declaration, the universe rearranges itself and it works. And now, there are several leadership council members here in the room. I know there's some online. We don't even talk about it. That line item, that 10%, is the same as paying for the electricity, for paying our mortgage, for paying all the other things. And of course, it's possible because as we have made that declaration, not only the consciousness of New Vision Center, but the consciousness of each and every beloved who is part of it has risen up to make it possible. And so we gratefully give. And that's what we do in every service. We remind ourselves that it is a choice. And when we stand fully in that choice, circumstances change, and sometimes we are surprised, but there it is. So that is a chapter 5 experience for me. And then I also wanted to be honest and look at where we more in the chapter 1 and 2 as a community. And that is the way we walk out our desire, our striving to be radically inclusive. Because when you open yourself up to that, when you take a stand for it, everything rises up to the surface that wants to be healed. Yes? Yes. That is the experience. Maybe I should have said that as the disclaimer at the beginning of this talk. If you bring your full love, peace, awareness, kindness to whatever it is you want to up-level in your life, everything that is unlike it rises up to the surface, and it is messy. And so how wonderful to have this structure that we talked about here today, these 5 chapters, to lean into, to know that that is an explanation of how the upward spiraling happens. We come into the whole feeling blindsided at times. Then we see it, but we try to ignore it. Then we take ownership. We say, it is my fault. We get out immediately. And then we choose to walk around it, and then we choose a different road. That is our work, beloveds. So this week, my invitation is, look at your life. Find where you are in the different chapters. Reach out to the practitioners to minister. Find a class, an experience that supports you in knowing there is a way out. Together, we can do it. I am so glad we are on this journey together. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's take a breath together. And so we realize that we are not alone. We realize that at the very center of our being is that one life. That spirit has always been and will always be, always willing to guide, guard, and direct us. noticing it, feeling it, allows our shoulders to drop as we fully step into this experience of being one in the one. Realizing that we are connected to the divine, to one another. There is no part within us that is not welcomed, loved. And so from this place, I speak my word for all of the beloveds who have placed their prayer requests into our prayer ministry. I speak a word for all the prayer requests that are living on our hearts, that haven't been articulated yet. And I know that the divine hears it, for the answer of the prayer is in the prayer itself. And so we allow all of it to come forth. The desire to feel more love, more peace, more harmony, more joy, more freedom, more possibility. How grateful, grateful, grateful I am to know that it is available at any moment when we take the time to turn towards it and say, I am available. I am here, beloved. And so it is with a grateful heart that I allow this prayer to just be placed into universal law. I let it go. I know it is done. It is complete. And together we know this truth as we say, and so it is.